Thank you all for joining us. Today, we are diving into how to build an effective pipeline and increase sales 5x. This will be part 2, and it's going to be focused around closing more deals. We actually dove into the first part of this webinar last Thursday, had some great discussion around building pipeline, but unfortunately, pipeline doesn't always pay the bills. So you need to close that. And that's what we're talking about today. And before I introduce these two gentlemen that are joining me today, a few housekeeping matters. So number one is we will be recording this. So if you have to jump off or you want to share it out with someone else in your organization, we'll be shooting the recording over to you via email once we wrap up. Number two, we always, want to get as much engagement from the community as possible. We want to tailor this to you and the struggles that you're facing at your organization. So jump on the Q&A panel there and ask questions. We'll be fielding relevant questions throughout, and then we'll probably have some time at the end for a little Q&A. But we got that out of the way. So want to introduce my two guests, of course. So I'm joined by Jeremiah Pansarasa. Did I get that right?
Yeah, sure. Close enough, man.
Okay,
Yep.
beautiful. Who is the business development manager over at Zoom. Obviously, Zoom is taking over the world right now. It's cool to see. And Jeffrey Fletcher, Senior Business Partnerships Manager over at Growlabs. Welcome, gentlemen.
All right.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us, Scott.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Excited to have you both. And you're at what is that? A baseball game? So you're doing this live, hey? From the ball game.
Yeah. So huge Oakland Athletics fan. I'll share a little bit more about that when it comes to my portion. But one of the fun and fancy features that we have at Zoom is I could be literally anywhere utilizing our virtual background image. I'm usually at a baseball field, but it's also a tool, right? You can throw this handsome devil up there and cater to your community by putting up a company logo.
Boom.
Cool stuff.
That's what we like to see. Awesome. So I always like to add a little bit more color to your background just for the sake of the community. So Jeff, I'll start with you. So you grew up in DC, moved to San Francisco about 10 years ago, you were saying. You've been in SaaS sales in SF for the last 5 years. You were actually the first sales hire at Growlabs, which is pretty cool. So you've probably seen some immense changes. And yeah, you're directly responsible for growing the revenue there from 0 to 4 million ARR in 1 year, which that's the hard one. It's one of the hardest parts for sure is that first little bit. And now you head up BD and partnerships. And on your spare time, you like to golf, rowing in the bay, and of course, trips up to wine country.
Got to take advantage of the city when you have them.
Yeah, no
I love
kidding.
it here on the West Coast. I feel displaced as a native East Coaster, but
Yeah,
anytime soon.
yeah, I love it, man. I'm a West Coast guy myself, so I try and take full advantage.
Yeah.
All right, Jeremiah. So another really cool story. So Jeremiah was Zoom employee number 98. What are you guys at now?
1,500, something like that. And that's
Crazy.
in 3 years. So it's been a wild ride.
I bet.
Never been on a rocket ship before, been doing this kind of stuff for a while, but I've never seen anything like what we're doing right now. So it's exciting. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so you've been there for a little over 3 years. Around mid 2017, you started building out Zoom's outbound lead gen efforts. In the obviously the Zoom BD team, and you scaled that team from 5 to 50 reps in only 4 quarters.
Yeah.
So that's insane. And you have worked, closing roles as well in 3 different segments. Someone told me that you've never missed quota once. Is this true?
There is truth to that, but I don't know what a little dirty birdie told you that secret. It's supposed to be a secret, but yeah.
That's pretty wild. So you're a huge advocate of obviously selling with video and how it's changed the landscape of sales. And you're going to be discussing, the power of face-to-face interactions, how it can have a huge impact on your company's ability to grow pipeline, close business in an efficient and effective manner.
That's right. And I'm going to share some of the kind of trade secrets, some tips and tricks to selling over video today. And hope folks get to leave with some, tangible, actionable things that they could do to increase their the quality of their video meetings. So
love it.
Happy to do that.
And so, yeah, just for the community, so this will be presentation style. So we've got some slides to go through and some really meaty content. So Jeff, let's start with you and let's get this show on the road, so to speak.
Perfect. Well, Jeremiah's already making me look bad with his custom background.
That's not custom? Looks like a nice custom job to me.
Yeah, exactly, the whiteboard.
Yeah.
Jeremiah, will you start the slideshow if you would, my friend?
Let's go ahead and rock this out.
Thank you very much.
Cool.
Well, here's us. I'll be taking the first part of this, and quickly we're going to recap what we talked about last week, which was essentially filling the top half of your sales funnel, how we construct micro segments, how we do multi-channel outbound, and then we'll get into the bottom half of the sales funnel, which deals with qualifying the leads, actually getting them on the demo, walking them through a Zoom meeting, hopefully, and then closing deals and tracking your metrics. So we'll go through 1 to 4 here in order. To start off, Jeremiah, will you give me the next slide, please?
Sorry about that.
You're good. So this is our whole sales funnel, and it's a little daunting to look at, I must admit, at first, but we're going to break this down into slides for each of these. And we're going to start at the top. You'll notice we have 5 different segments here. These are some that we reach out to ourselves. And below that, we have different little pillars here, and those represent our micro segments. So we're not just targeting tech or SaaS companies. We're trying to target them a bit more directly. Next slide, please, if you don't mind. All right, this is perfect. So what we're looking at here are VPs of sales at SaaS companies. Now, this is where most people might stop their search. They're going to say, I want the top of the top for your sales, and I want to target tech companies. Great. Today's day and age, however, people are inundated with emails left and right. Most of them get deleted or lost in your inbox. So you've got to be a bit more strategic with this, and that's where these last 2 filters come into play. Now, this is a screenshot from our platform, and as you can see, we've got our personas at the top, industries down below, but our 3rd and 4th filters here really essentially make this into a micro segment. The 3rd one, company size, mid-market. Why is this important? It's important because different sizes of companies have different sales cycles. Your enterprise deals are going to take a long time, 3 to 6 months, maybe 12. Mid-market, a little less than that. SMBs, less than that. So not only do you want these people to be essentially in the same industry, you want them on the same sales cycle. That's where the company size comes in. Lastly, we target companies often who recently raised rounds of funding. You know that if someone raised a round, they're trying to grow quickly, and they usually have dollars to spend with you. All right, so by utilizing these 4 filters, there's our 1 micro segment. Now, beyond this, how else do we find companies to target? The next slide here, as you can see, looks at lookalikes. Hopefully, you guys have made some sales already. Let's take those clients you already have, see what they look like. Who did you reach out to? What kind of company were they? What personas are you trying to target? What technologies are they using? All of these things can be utilized to create other micro segments to target with your email outreach. Now, it's important to set up both an outbound and an inbound channel. Ideally, you'll be doing this yourself through outbound, plus you'll have leads coming in through marketing efforts, word of mouth, through inbound. But for the purposes of this, we'll focus on the outbound segment here and how we start the outreach process. So on the next slide, we're going to look at essentially Growlabs. Go back a couple for me. There we go. Perfect. We're going to look at Growlabs in the middle here, which is our platform, but it's not the only thing in our tech stack. Today, tech stacks are like collecting baseball cards, right? Everyone's always eager to tell everybody, what do you use? Who do you have? So not only do we use Growlabs, obviously, for our automation and our lead generation. On the back end, we have our CRM connected. We use Salesforce ourselves. For our website integrations, we use Intercom so people can talk directly to our team here. On the front end, in terms of the outreach process, we're going to warm up people with ads through AdRoll, which we'll talk about in just a second. And lastly, I get trigger notifications using Slack, so I know who to reach out to when they've opened my emails a bunch of times. Those are the people I'm going to cold call. So it's about constructing your tech stack in a logical manner. We have Growlabs as the hub, but again, we have lots of spokes coming out of it where we work from. So on the next slide, we'll talk about how we start to engage with these folks. All right, for your SMB accounts, maybe the low-level accounts, we're going to try to automate this entire process because you don't want your sales reps to spend a bunch of time on low-level accounts who aren't going to pay you the big bucks. All right, it starts with an automated email, and then we utilize a platform called Orca, which automates touches via LinkedIn. So, Scott, for example, if I send you an email and you open it, you'll get a LinkedIn connection from me immediately. If you accept, then you'll get a LinkedIn message from me, which I customized in a templated form. All right, so not only am I getting you via email, now I'm also reaching out via LinkedIn. So we've got two, right? So yeah. Email's the first, LinkedIn's the second. We've got two more coming here. So on the next slide, with your high-level accounts, you're going to incorporate a phone call here as well. Now, we do this again via Slack. If someone opens my emails 2, 3, 4, 5 times, I'll get a trigger right away, and I'll call them up because they're probably interested in having a conversation. Those people who don't open my emails, I'm not going to waste my time cold calling. Frankly, it's not a scalable model here, so I'm only trying to call the high-value targets who are actually looking at the stuff I'm sending them because they're probably engaged. Right? So that's our third touch: email, LinkedIn, phone call. Now on the next slide here, before we get to the fourth touch, here's what an email cadence might look like. Now, the trick with outbound sales is sending these to the right person with the right message at the right time. We can identify those first two things, the right person, and we can identify the right message. Timing is the great unknown here. So with our sequences, what we're trying to do is essentially send them continual messages over the course of 6 to 8 weeks. Jeremiah, for example, if I try to sell you a winter jacket in August, are you going to be interested in this? Probably not. It's hot as heck where you are. But if I try to sell you the same winter jacket in October or November, maybe the weather has turned, it's cold, now you're interested.
Yeah, let's talk.
It's the same point with outbound sales, right? Someone might not be interested in what I'm selling in August, which is fine. They might be on vacation. But by September, October, maybe the timing's better. Maybe they've got a budget to spend before the end of the year. So the point here is we're going to send logical messaging that tells people who we are, what we do, how we can solve their pain points. And we're going to space these out over the course of 6 to 8 weeks so that we give them enough time to respond when it's right on their side.
Love it. And Jeff, I'm going to quickly jump in here. We got some good questions from the community, and I want to jump into a few of them. So this is an interesting question. We've got J.E. is asking, so J.E.'s at a startup, so scrappy stage. When you only have one enterprise AE at a startup and you're building out, your enterprise sales pipeline, and you're also in charge of closing your own deals, what tools and just top tactics and advice do you use to create engagement with your leads?
Yeah, it sounds like JE is a one-man band over there.
He's going for it.
Unfortunately, I know what that feels like. It's a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
The real key is organizing this, creating a game plan or an outline, and then trying to automate as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Because ideally, you want to spend your time on demos, on videos, closing deals, instead of prospecting.
Yeah.
So for us, I work at Growlabs. We can automate the lead gen and we can automate the outreach process, which for me is a lifesaver. I don't want to spend time prospecting. I want to spend time on calls like this, right? So as much as you can automate on that sense, the better off you'll be. So you'll need lead gen, you'll need communications, you need it to sync with your CRM to stay organized. Through our Zapier integration, our platform can integrate with LinkedIn through Orca. We can do ad campaigns through AdRoll. We can send things back to our CRM, whatever we're using, whether it's HubSpot, Salesforce, Pipedrive, etc. Right? This frees up my day. So all I'm really doing is responding to emails, hopefully when they're positive, and then setting up demos and more meetings so I can close more deals. But the back end, you really want to automate as much as possible. Jay, feel free to email me afterwards. I'm happy to talk strategy and walk you through this.
Yeah.
I was there myself 16 months ago, so I know your pain points. I know what you're going through, and it's not easy.
Totally. Yeah, and what I would add there too, I've been in a similar boat, just you kind of touched on it, like time to evaluate the current process. And in order to set yourself up for success, it might take you away from selling initially, but in the long run, it's gonna help you prevail for sure.
You're exactly right. Having an outline and a game plan is crucial to this.
Yeah.
You don't want to do what I did in college, which is leave the studying to the last minute. Let's try to do some planning in advance.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. JP, will you go to the next slide for me, please? Perfect. So this is the fourth method we use for outreach. Right? We touched on email, LinkedIn, phone calls. Now, through our Zapier integration, we can now target people with ads through AdRoll. Right? So imagine you're on Amazon and you're shopping for something, but don't buy it. You're going to see banner ads for that whenever you're surfing the web later that day. They're going to remind you to come back and complete that purchase. We're trying to do the exact same thing here. Right? The multi-channel outreach extends beyond just email these days. So we have triggers set up where when someone opens our emails, now we target them with banner ads. So when JP is on ESPN.com looking at the Oakland A's scores at lunchtime, you're going to see a banner ad for Growlabs, for example. Right? And again, we can automate this process. It's just one other way to get in touch with someone to try to get them to engage with you on the initial conversation. Right? So those are the four ways that we're trying to do the multi-channel outreach here. The next slide is going to illustrate how we're doing essentially the bottom half of the sales funnel here, right? Getting them on the demo, trying to close those deals and work them through from a prospect to a close one opportunity.
Perfect.
Right?
So now we're diving into kind of the second half, which is closing more deals. And yeah, just to kind of reiterate for the community. So the main takeaways from, last Thursday and part one is, make sure you're micro-segmenting, customizing your messaging per segment, and make sure you're reaching out with an omni-channel approach, with 6 to 8 week sequences set up.
That's exactly right. We've talked about how we engage with people, trying to get them interested. Now, how do we get them to buy what you're selling? All right. So, Jeremiah, on the next slide here, we're going to talk about marketing landing pages. This I absolutely love. So we use a program called Instapage for this. And the point is, let's say I send an email to Scott and one to Jeremiah. You guys work at different companies in different industries. So when I drive you to my site, I want you each to see a customizable page that speaks to exactly who you are and what problem I can solve for you. All right? So we're going to look at two examples here. Jeremiah, the next slide is the first landing page here. The two examples we have, this one is for spas, the next one is for restaurants. On this slide, you'll notice what we're highlighting here because, little secret, these are templates. What's going to change is the header, the background, and then a little bit of the messaging down below, right? So Jeremiah, pretend you work at a spa. This is your landing page, right? So I'm going to tell you everything we can do for spas, 100,000 treatments sold. Perfect. And the background matches what we might see at your business. The next slide is the exact same template, right? The highlights are in the exact same area, but I'm just customizing a couple words here to tailor this to Scott's restaurant, right? So Scott clicks on this. Here's your restaurant. Instead of 100,000 spa appointments, we've sold 10 million meals on your page. So just by changing the background and a couple of points in the header and the footer, we're creating customized landing pages for each person who's coming onto our site.
So personalization without a ton of effort.
That's the key to the game, right? It looks like you're putting in a ton of effort here, but
yeah,
we're not. Again, it takes a little outline, a little planning. But again, if you set this up before you start outbounding, you're going to drive up your engagement 2-3x because this is so much more personalized.
Right. And you're not necessarily going to get a ton of organic growth on these like landing pages, but you're actually driving it through your outbound efforts towards these pages.
That's exactly right. You go to the doctor's office and Scott, you say your arm hurts. JP says his foot hurts. The doc's going to prescribe different things for you guys.
Right.
Same with business. All businesses are different. You all have different pain points. But this goes back to the micro segmentation we talked about at the very beginning. If you set that up properly, via industry in this case, you're going to have separate landing pages for both of them, which are much more effective than driving someone to your normal site, which might list 12 industries, 11 of which don't apply to you here. Jeremiah, we're right about at your point here. So on the next slide, a couple more here. We're going to talk about how we essentially get them on the demo in the first place. So they've come to your landing page. Great. Now let's make this frictionless for them to book a demo. We use Calendly for ours. It's one of a million services. Mixmax works great. But again, you want to give them a very easy way, once they're on your landing page, to book an appointment with one of your sales reps. That's the point. Get them on the phone with you guys, or the video in this case. So we set up a round robin through Calendly. We have 6 sales reps. It's right on the website. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see exactly what the booking looks like. Pop in their name. It'll run robin to one of our reps. And you can be in a demo within 2 or 3 hours here. So again, make it frictionless. You've got their attention, right? You've baited the hook. They're on the line. Give them an easy way to reach out to you and talk to one of your sales reps. And at this point, JP, I'm going to let you take over from here and talk about, once you're on the video, what do you do?
So now for the real dog and pony show, huh? So yeah, and thank you for the intro. I love what we're talking about here, Jeff. It's stuff that we echo on my team all the time, right? The secret sauce, and there is no secret sauce to prospecting. If you can figure out how to reach out to the right people at the right time with the right message, you're going to be successful. You're going to be able to book appointments. But what kind of appointments are you booking? There's a ton of different types of appointments. So what we're going to talk about here today is a little bit of, what I've learned about the evolution of sales, kind of where it came from, what it's moving toward. We're going to talk a little bit about selling with millennials. It's a hot topic in the world of sales, and especially in SaaS. I'll talk a little bit about Zoom. I'll make sure to not make this a whole sales pitch, but we have a powerful video engine and a unified collaboration solution that is really successful with this today. And then I'll give some tips and tricks to selling over video. So first off, where did we come from, right? Old school door knocking, right? I'm really passionate about the profession of sales. And the whole door-to-door encyclopedia salesman thing, that's obviously door-to-door salespeople are few and far between today. And then it kind of evolved into telesales, right? Making calls. Hopefully none of you are making calls like this guy. I just really liked that image. So but we all know what that's like. And then it was like, email came along and email was everything, and people stopped making calls. And then the whole big push with social selling, and all of the powerful things that you can do today with LinkedIn and, Twitter and other social sites. What I've come to, kind of believe in is that, none of it's dead, right? You get some people out there talking about, this is the age of social selling, or we're even beyond that now. And what I've learned in building this team here and doing a lot of research is that they're all still essential in some respect, right? You still need to be making calls, right? We still need to be crafting well-designed emails. We still need to be reaching out to people over social. And we were kind of talking before we fired up here today about that omni approach, right? On our team, we like to call it the triple whammy, right? When we're trying to build pipeline, the way that we're booking the most meetings is by making a call, sending an email, and doing a social touch. And some people like to space them out. Some people like to do them all together. I would like to do the triple whammy all at once. I was successful at that. But then you book those appointments, and what are those appointments? So, there's still a fair amount of people that are doing audio conferencing today. Jump on an old school audio conference bridge line. Everybody dials in. Hey, Scott, it's JP. Is Jeff there yet? No, I think we're still waiting for Jeff. Hey, it's Jeff. You guys here? And it's just that awkward stuff. And what we've seen is kind of a revolutionary shift away from that type of meeting to high quality face-to-face interactions. Everybody knows that in the world of collaboration, it's a pretty crowded space. There are a lot of solutions out there. The big names you hear are like, WebEx and, Skype for Business and, kind of in the more small to medium sized business, there's, the GoToMeetings of the world, there's Blue Jeans, there's a lot of solutions. But, each of them are really good at certain things in their own respect. But what I'm really getting at is what we've evolved to when you book that meeting is the best type of meeting to have is face-to-face interactions with your customers and prospects, right? You get a level of engagement. Doing a little bit of research and having built this team, as Scott was mentioning in my intro, I built this team really big, really fast, and the majority of my team, if not, all but a couple, they're these guys, right? So everybody knows these guys, right? They're nothing to be scared of anymore. Scott's kind of smiling and nodding. He might even be one of these folks, right? But
I may fall into those. I may have ripped jeans from time to time.
Yeah. And I talk about the millennials. I embrace the millennials, and I think we all need to, because in doing a little bit of research, Forbes says, by 2020, millennials will comprise over 50% of the workforce. Saw an article a couple days ago that even today in 2018, millennials comprise 20% of leadership roles. And the numbers are just staggering. And we're even going to see, the next generation, they're calling them Generation Z, right? And why do I bring this up, right? These folks, I talk about them like I'm not one, and technically I was born in the 70s, right? But I grew up with technology as well. But this next generation of the workforce and even leadership, they grew up with these devices in their hands, right? And they grew up with they like stimulation. They like to see and feel and be able to hear and see everything all at once, right? So they grew up FaceTiming with each other, right? I have a daughter who's 18 years old, and tell a quick little story here. She got her first cell phone when she was probably 12 or 13 years old, and she was one of the last of her friends to get a cell phone, and she started using her phone, and we started texting and stuff like that. And there's more than one occasion I've needed to talk to her about something, and I give her a call, right? Make a phone call, and she answers the phone like, hello, like what kind of weirdo makes a phone call? Dad, just text me what you want to say. Like, don't be a weirdo and call me, right? And it's funny. This is, the way that people communicate has changed. And we see this in the business world too. The way that, product demos and, meetings with customers and prospects, it's happening face to face. Luckily, there is a platform out there that allows people, there's multiple platforms I mentioned, and I'm not going to do a whole sales pitch, but there is a platform that allows people to meet face to face from any device in any location across all platforms, right? So what we offer at Zoom is the highest quality video experience, right? And people are, widely coming to understand that. But the buck doesn't stop there. For us, with our communications platform, we have the ability to take care of basically this 5-pillared solution, being meetings, web and video conferencing, simple to use screen share capabilities, chat, instant messaging and presence, right? Share files, share documents. Right now you're viewing a webinar, right? So this is the one-to-many kind of, seminar type of presentation. We have a conference room solution that is software defined, right? We also have the ability to integrate with existing conference room solutions with our conference room connector. And then for people who are building applications and want to have video technology built into their applications, we have Zoom for Developers. So ultimately, what we're seeing in the world of business today is collaboration drives business. And this is just a couple of pictures of, different types of Zoom meetings on the desktop, in the conference room, chat, share files, share documents. There's a picture of a webinar and the mobile experience. So the power of this is you can have meetings with your customers and prospects from any device in any location, right? And if I'm not sitting at my desktop, I'm in the backseat of a taxi cab on the way to the airport, right? Taxi cab, it's probably an Uber, right? I keep dating myself, but you have the ability to meet with your customers and prospects face to face wherever you're at now, and it doesn't seem like that's slowing down anytime soon. So we're here for you, right? You can reach out to us. There's other platforms that are out there, but video meetings are new to a lot of people. So one of the pieces of value that I wanted to provide today, in terms of you land that appointment, it's time for you to do your product demo, right? Share your screen, annotate, show what you're working on, and annotation and co-annotation, you build on ideas together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run into some tips and tricks. So I will talk briefly about this. I actually, for this piece, so I'll mention what I'm going to talk about, right? Choosing the right platform. I have in parentheses Zoom. This isn't a Zoom sales pitch, but make sure that you choose the platform that meets your needs, and test them out. Test them out. Play around with as many as you can before you go signing any long-term contracts, just to make sure that the platform that you choose meets your needs. I'll talk about selecting quality peripherals, right? So your audio device, your camera. Make sure your lighting is favorable. It's inevitable. I'll meet with people and they're sitting in front of, Scott looks fantastic right now, but I normally tell people, don't sit in front of a window that has sunlight behind it, because it's gonna black you out, and you're gonna look like you're in the witness protection program. We call that the Darth Vader, right?
I'm cheating. I have front lighting right now, so
yeah.
don't do. Don't follow me. I'm a bad example right now.
You look great. Properly frame yourself. So here, I'll give you a quick example, right? So I don't have the best posture in the world, right? I do have my standing desk, and when we started this presentation, I was standing up and I was kind of bouncing around a little. But sometimes, maybe it's late in the day, and I have the worst posture, and sometimes I'll slouch down and hey, so how impactful is this? Yeah, Dave, that'll be great. We'll go ahead and, I'll go ahead and put together that proposal. I'll send you over, everything that you need. And this is not looking great, right? So properly frame yourself. Am I getting a delay here? My Salesforce is acting up. I had too many applications open. I told you guys not to do this, and then I did it.
I think you're good.
Let me close some stuff out.
Cool.
So properly frame yourself, right? You're going to want to look, and sometimes if I'm not looking at the camera, maybe Scott's saying something that's making me think deeply. I'm kind of staring off into space, and I'm thinking about it. But then when it's time to engage, right? And it's natural. Sometimes if I have multiple people in a meeting, I'm on gallery view, and with Zoom, you have the ability to see 49 active video feeds on one screen. Right? You have the ability to have up to 1,000 video feeds in a meeting, but I can see lots of people. And if I'm talking to Jeff and I'm looking down here at Jeff, it's natural when I'm talking to Jeff I'm looking at his face, right? I'm having a conversation with a human being. But there's this little trick here where if I actually, and it feels weird, but if I look into the camera, the person on the other side of this meeting actually has a feeling that I'm looking at them, right? And you don't want to get too close and make it weird, right? Or not like checking for bugs in the bat cave there, but properly frame yourself. Get yourself in the middle of the screen, right? You're going to want to stand up straight or sit up straight with good posture and look into the camera. And that way, whoever I'm talking to, if that's Jeff, if that's Scott, they feel as though I'm talking to them, right? Some people are big proponents of hand motions and gestures. There's studies out there that say, gosh, I should know the numbers, but it's 11% of what's received is actually words, right? 30% is the tonality, and over 50% is body language, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why having the ability to have a face-to-face conversation with somebody on the other side of the world using video conferencing, it's impactful. It's
Mhm.
impactful.
Yeah.
And then I have the ability. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to that point, I think it's as high as, I think it's 70% is body language. I think is the one you're going with, which is pretty insane. And just a sidebar, I've been such a massive fan of video in the sales process almost since, I started my career. I can't tell you how many times people, prospects have come back and be like, it was so nice to actually like see that you're a human. And talk about like a competitive advantage. If you're having a face to face with someone and you can look them in the eyes and like have a real connection versus someone on a phone call, it's completely night and day in any stage of the funnel, whether it's prospecting, initial outreach, whether it's, conducting the demo, whether it's doing a recap video, whether it's sending them something that they can socialize with, other decision makers, because we know there's, 7 decision makers now in every deal, all these things. It's I really strongly feel everything that you're saying right now, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Scott. And it's even after that too, right? It's post sales, it's customer success. Part of the reason why we've been so successful today is, our founder and CEO is Eric Yuan is very adamant about our company motto being delivering happiness, right? We deliver happiness to our customers, to our prospects, and to each other. And when somebody gets a real live human being after that sale to rally around them and all of their team and make sure that everybody's trained up and set up for success, and it's a real human being like this, right? It's a lot more engaging, right? It feels
Totally.
real.
Yeah.
We also talked about, let's see, what are other tips and tricks? Be engaged, speak to the camera. I talked on that PowerPoint is use compelling virtual backgrounds, and I kind of mentioned it in our intro. And I've used this as a powerful tool, right? To say I'm meeting with Sales Hacker, I put up their company logo, and that's the first impression that they get when they see me on video. Is look at this. Well, we're already connected, right? We belong together. If Sales Hacker's talking about coaching, and choose a compelling background. Mine is usually the, Oakland A's or, we can go with something natural, right? Like a beach scene, or, we can take a walk through the woods. But if you guys really want to close deals, right? And this is a pro tip. This is pro tip number 62. If you really want to close deals, you put this handsome devil up, right?
And I only charge 15%.
15%, but they sign instantly. You put it up behind you, they sign instantly. It's crazy, right?
That's awesome. Jeremiah, okay, so I'm gonna jump in here because we continue to get a bunch of really good questions. So I love that slide. But let's go. Okay, so we got a good question from Sohan. Thank you for the question, Sosi. So it's really interesting listening to you guys. Would really like to hear your thoughts on the discovery process. So back, beginning of the funnel, and what tools or methods you normally use. So I guess around qualification and things like that.
Yeah, is that a question for myself or
whoever wants to take a stab at it? Yeah, I think we've all probably got some insight there.
Yeah, so I mean, I love how Jeff brought up, comparing tech stacks today is like trading baseball cards, right? Our tech stack is obviously, we're Salesforce too. We're using a combination of for a cadence tool. Today we're utilizing SalesLoft. We chose to go with SalesLoft because it's got good cadences and a really powerful dialer behind it. We've tested a lot of different tools, but in terms of discovery, I find the most powerful weapon that we have to be today is the telephone. And the reason for that is when you're on, it's commonly referred to as a cold call. There's a great book out there called Smart Calling, about doing account research and knowing who you're calling before you call them so that you can have an educated conversation, even though they weren't expecting your call. But when you're talking to a live human being over a telephone rather than, emailing back and forth, and somebody has an objection, right? If I'm calling Scott and Scott says, hey, we just signed a contract with so-and-so. We're probably not in the market. I'm not a lead for you. Go ahead and move on. Well, Scott, have you thought about this, right? What about the idea that we actually integrate with these solutions and we wouldn't have to rip and replace? You get the ability to overcome objections on a phone call, over email, a lot more. So, I mean, I think that's what, in terms of discovery, I think the phone, it's interesting, right? We talk about the evolution of sales, and it was phone, and it was email, and it was social. We've seen kind of a gravitation back over to the phone calls being really powerful. That's what we see on my team.
Yeah, Jim, I agree with that. You can say no via email pretty easily.
Yep.
You can say no via a typed form pretty easily. Look, I'm going to tout your system here. What I like to do for the first intro discovery is a video call.
Yep.
Right? Like, just hop on one with me. Right? Give me 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found is that once you do that first video call, they're used to doing it with you, and they expect it. Right? So even if someone's not familiar with this, I'll still have my camera on. My background isn't quite as nice as yours, but they can see me. They can see my hands. They can see me emoting 70% here.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, puts a real person to the voice, right? So if they have an objection, right, you can handle it right here on the call. And look, what's 10 minutes out of my day, right? If I'm going to qualify someone, I should be able to take that 10 minutes. And, we're not strict on structure here. It's a startup. So we just like to have honest conversations, right? I'll ask them, what's in your tech stack? Mm-hmm. What kind of pain points are you trying to solve here? Are you in the market for something? What are you looking for? Budget, timeline, all that's important. But I find humanizing the process really sort of lowers their guard. They know what you're doing, and you know what you're doing. But if you can put a little bit more human touch to it, we'll just do a quick call. It's like getting coffee, They're much more receptive to sort of picking up what you're putting down, right? Having an engaging conversation with you for at least 10 minutes.
Yep.
Totally.
Absolutely.
100%.
Thank you.
Agree.
Thank you for that, Jeff. That's the goal of every one of our calls, is to schedule a Zoom meeting, right? We found nothing more powerful in selling Zoom meetings than Zoom meetings. So, it works. Yep. Were you going to add something there, Scott?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's what I would call it. That's kind of like a micro commitment, right? And it's key to get these little micro commitments from people. And if they're not willing to take 10 minutes and dive on a video little conference with you, do you really want to be chasing up this lead? Like, they probably aren't picking up what you're throwing down. So it can help weed out, prospects that you shouldn't be, paying attention to as well.
Yep. I like it. I have 2 more little pro tips, unless we want to address some more questions.
We'll do them at the end. We'll do a Q&A at the end. Yeah, because we do have a lot. Thank you, everyone, for the great engagement.
So I talked about the ability for, Zoom as a platform to for you to be able to have a face-to-face video conference from any device in any location, right? So what I've just done is opened up my calendar on my mobile device, right? And if someone can go ahead and pin my mobile device as the main stream, what I'm showing you is I just, with one click, by opening up my calendar on my mobile device, I've joined, and now I'm on mobile, right? Cool. So the power of that is I don't have to be by my desktop. And you can see some of the magic of the green screen goes away when I'm on mobile, right? I'm just a dude in an office sitting in front of a green piece of felt that I got on Amazon for $15. But there's a couple of tips that I was going to show here, and here, I'll spin this around. And I have this old Samsung phone, and my camera is not the highest quality. But I talked about choosing good peripherals, right? So the webcam that I'm using is just a Logitech C920. It's something on Amazon. I think it's like $64, right? It's not the greatest camera in the world. It's inexpensive, but the quality is good, right? Mm-hmm. For an audio device, I'm using the Sennheiser. Oh, this is going to be weird. I'm using the Sennheiser Office Runner, right? So it's a pretty good headset. A lot of people will go into their meetings with, earbuds. I think Scott's using earbuds right now. So Apple AirPods work really well. There's a ton of different hardware components out there. You can choose whatever is within your budget and feels comfortable to you, but make sure that you have good peripherals, right? Because you can choose the right video engine, right? And the video quality is going to be good, but if your headset's bad, or if you have like faulty wiring on your camera, things like that, that's not going to give you the best experience, right? Mm-hmm. Another tip is, jump into your meetings a little early. We did this here today, right? We started 10 minutes early, and we did a little practice run. again, so am I pinned right now? Is what you guys are seeing my mobile feed?
We can see it up in the top right there.
Okay. So another tip to being on a mobile video conference, and this drives me nuts. People don't realize this, right? You can be on a mobile video conference. You can be walking around, and this is more the FaceTime experience, right? Sometimes people are walking around on a video conference and they're walking around like this, right? And then they're making everyone dizzy and they're going around too fast and the camera's all shaky and, stabilize that sucker, right? Slow down. Keep it stabilized, right? Frame yourself, look at the lens, right? Look at the camera, not at yourself. And then people can feel as though that they're engaged, right? So don't do this number when you're on a mobile video meeting because you're going to drive people crazy and I'm probably making people dizzy right now. So I will go ahead and stop that.
Thanks, man.
Last thing here is, and this is another Zoom feature, but, from my mobile device, I can choose to share anything that I'm running on my mobile device, right? And if I had my PowerPoint, my spreadsheet, whatever it is I'm looking to share, product demonstration, here's me and one of the guys from our channel team and one of our SMB managers out at the Oakland Coliseum last night, right? So
very cool.
Sharing screen from mobile. We know this guy. We love him. Everybody loves this guy, but I don't know about this bum here. Let's get this guy out of here, right? So sharing the screen of my mobile device with annotations, right? I'm doing a full-blown video conference on my mobile device, and I can do that wirelessly from any device. So
that's awesome.
Pretty cool stuff. But those are some of my pro tips. And then the last pro tip I have for holding high-quality video meetings is make sure to have fun with it, right? And it takes a little bit of time. When people start doing video conferencing, it's not something that's innate to most people. When I talk about, those folks who are not millennials like myself, older generations, and it's weird, right? They're like, no, I just want to have a phone call. So it's just a little uncomfortable at first, but then once you start to get comfortable, make sure you have fun with it, right? Get engaged, right? Be animated. Be a human being, right? We talk about this human experience. And if I'm a human being in a video conference with another human being, no matter where they're at, it's like we're sitting next to each other, right? Nothing, at the end of the day, nothing will ever replace a face-to-face handshake to close a deal. But this is damn close.
Absolutely. And just to add on that, a funny, so I implemented in a past role video heavily into the sales process, and a funny kind of byproduct of doing that is my reps actually got better on the phone from doing video. And the reason why, I've got some assumptions on why it happened, but it was because they were because they could see themselves. They were paying more attention to, the words they were using and how they were coming across. And it was a funny evolution to see that their messaging got more succinct. They carried themselves better. All these little things. It's almost like, practicing a speech in front of a mirror kind of deal.
Yeah, no, I was just going to bring that up when you started talking about this. When I first got into sales, we didn't have video conferencing, and my sales manager said, put a mirror next to your computer so that when you're making calls, you can see what your facial expression is, right? And people say that when you're talking to someone else, they can hear a smile. Hear a smile. Come on, really? But there's science behind it, right? And so taking that even a step further, if I'm looking at myself and I'm looking at who I'm, I see how I'm carrying myself, and my tonality gets better. You're right.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Cool.
All right. So we've got a few questions we're going to dive into here. So we've got John Reacher, and I can quickly answer this question. What is Jeremiah using to display his background? Of course, it's Zoom. So we nailed that one. And then Earl Van S asked, this is a good question. So, and I'm sure you probably get this a lot, Jeremiah. And Jeff, I want to get your opinion on this as well. Our target, our ICP, is a more traditional, old school market that has, wholesale distribution. That's the market. Do you have experience selling to a more traditional market like this? And are they as receptive to video?
I love that question.
That's a good question. Yeah.
The answer is yes to the first part. I have some experience with it. And the answer is no, not at first. But I equate it to giving your parents an iPhone, right? I give a 6-year-old an iPhone. They're like, what do I do with this? How do I use it? But once you explain it to them and sort of walk them through it and show them the benefits, they love it because it's like magic to them. A lot of these people, I mean, we're in San Francisco. JP, you're down in San Jose. I mean, we're all in the tech capital of America here. And we know about all this stuff. We know it exists. We use it all the time. The rest of the country isn't in our bubble. A lot of people don't know about any of this. So with a more traditional market, what I'll typically do is maybe via email, I'll tell them I'm going to send over a link to a Zoom meeting, and you're going to be able to see me, whether you have a camera on or not. I just want you to be able to see me, right? I don't throw it at them. I let them know what's going to happen, so they're not surprised by anything. And then when they see me, they're immediately disarmed. Like, oh, he's just a normal guy, and I'm having a chit-chat with him, face to face. From there, you'll find a lot of them will adopt this and turn their cameras on. And they're like, well, I can see you. I guess you can see me, and it's okay. So I find that, yes, they're very receptive to it once they sort of dip their toe in the water. But you don't want to force feed this to them or throw it at them without any warning.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've seen the same thing, right? Obviously, where we've grown the most rapidly is in technology, right? And in like higher education, growing super duper fast in healthcare, but we do well in the other more traditional markets too, something more old school, manufacturing or, things like that. It really is just all about education, and a slow rollout, a little bit extra hand holding. But I love your analogy too, right? Like giving my grandpa, he can't stop texting now, right? Now my grandpa's like my 18-year-old. Why are you calling me? Just shoot me a text. Like that's not real, but it's kind of funny. I love that analogy.
Yeah,
it's a little extra help.
Yeah, and my point to kind of add on top of that would just be, in tech, this has basically become table stakes, in my opinion, right? So when you're in some of these old school industries, it can be an amazing differentiator, right? If none of your competitors are doing it and you're the first one to adopt this, well, it's going to naturally make you stand out, and you'll have that, because eventually everyone will do this. It's what we're getting there. You'll have that 3 to 6 month window where you're doing it and your competitors aren't.
That's exactly right. And a lot of traditional companies don't just sell to other traditional old school companies. They might be selling to millennials, right? They might be selling to tech companies, even though they're more of an old school model. So the earlier they adopt this, the bigger advantage they'll have over the competition. I mean, great point, Scott.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, okay, so we've got a good question. I love this. I'm an avid reader, and Nicholas wants to ask can each of us recommend a book about outbound sales? I know, Jeremiah, you mentioned one already. What was that one again?
Yeah, it's called Smart Calling.
Smart Calling. Nice.
Yeah. Let's see.
And for me, biggest impact early on in my career was the Sales Development Playbook by Trish Bertuzzi. It's an awesome resource from both kind of like a manager perspective, as well as it helped me as an individual rep too. There it is.
I'm holding the book he talks about. How about that?
That's awesome.
I think she owes us some money, dude.
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I actually saw Trish down in Boston last week. She's awesome. Jeff, what about yourself?
The first book I ever read was called Spin Selling, which has been around for years.
Yeah.
But I recently read a book about negotiating, which was called Never Split the Difference. It was by
Chris Voss.
Yeah. And, selling books are all about the process. This was about negotiation and price. And that's one of the biggest keys to becoming an effective account exec, because as we know, everything in life is negotiable, especially with B2B sales. Every person I talk to says, do you have any discounts? Do you have any lower pricing? Can you cut me a break? And reading that book allowed both me and my sales team to negotiate at a much higher rate, much more confidently. Never split the difference. My recommendation.
I'll second that one. That's a really good book for sure.
Nice. And then a little bit more on my topic. I got one more. A little
Yeah,
bonus.
of course.
There's one called Screen-to-Screen Selling by Doug DeVitre, and it's kind of more about the topic that we're talking about now. There's a lot of people that like that book too.
Sweet. Nice. I haven't checked that one out. Okay, so I've got a question from Jordan Bronstein here. A very specific question. I like diving into some of these. So the use case is I need to schedule a demo with multiple domain experts across multiple different time zones, to increase efficacy of the initial discovery call. Any suggestions on how to automate or make that process easier? I'll let either one of you take first crack at that.
That's a tricky one.
That is a tough question. I would say, the different time zones kind of split the difference, try to do something in the middle. But if you're not able to accomplish that, there's always the opportunity for multiple meetings or a meeting with the most important stakeholders and record and send the recording.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that. We send recordings all the time. We record them right from Zoom. Traditionally, if you're going to have people in, let's say, Australia, the US, and Europe, one person is going to get hosed. Make sure you're that person.
Yeah.
It's not going to be great for you, but it's not about you. You're trying to sell this to 2 other people across the world. Right? If you schedule at 3 a.m., make sure that they're viewing this at 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. And you're the one at 3 a.m. You don't want to put them in that bind because they're never going to be receptive to it. So if one person has to get hosed by the time chase, make sure it's you.
Yeah, good point.
Definitely. Agreed.
It's not great, but better you than them.
That's why there's espresso.
Absolutely. And there is also calendar tools that you can look at that can basically, find the cross section of where you all have time, and you can basically let them choose their own time. So I would say lean on technology when you can as well. Okay. Another question from Nicolas, probably might be our last question. We got a few minutes here. He's saying, so just starting out with outbound, how do you test different messages? Do you two like group prospects and A/B test different approaches? How are you guys doing that?
The answer is yes to all of the above. We test anything and everything. So for example, if you have one micro segment with 1,000 people, you can essentially break that down into groups of hundreds, right? And from there, I can A/B test different messages, different titles of my email, different calls to action. And by essentially labeling these in our platform and tracking the results, we're able to see where we're finding the most engagement in the most efficient way. So look, when I started, we didn't really know what we were doing or who we were targeting. So we would run 50 campaigns at once and just look at all the different results. Now, we've gotten much more efficient with that as we've moved through the process. But it's important to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Mm-hmm. We even tried different messaging from different people, right? For example, Jeremiah, people might respond to you because your name sounds good, but they won't respond to my colleague Cornelius because, I don't know, it's a mouthful to say. We've literally tried different names, and we've made up aliases to see if we can get different results from other names. So anything you can think of, try it, see if it works, and just stick with the most effective method.
Yeah,
love it. And so I think, so we're running up on time here, but I think we have like a few more slides to get through there. Jeff, do you want to run through a few more before we wrap up?
For sure. Jeremiah, do me a favor and start sharing your screen one more time. There's just a couple more things.
You got it.
Close this out. And it really, so we've gone through the Zoom meeting, right? So at the bottom half of the funnel, we've engaged with them. They've gone through the demo. Now what? Well, hopefully you'll send them some collateral after the demo because they're going to take it to their team. That should be segment specific, right? People want different things. Again, if someone missed the meeting, send them a recording. If you have multiple case studies, send them the one that speaks to their industry. Send them a deck, send them a one-pager, right? Whatever they're looking for, make sure you have the collateral and can send it to them. Mm-hmm. On the next slide, how do we actually take their payments? They want to buy from you. Let's make this as easy as possible. We use Salesforce and connect PandaDoc right to it. So I'm able to send out a contract within 60 seconds and it has multiple payment methods within it. People can sign it, and you can pay it through a credit card, through ACH, right through the Panda doc. So as a sales rep, once you've gotten someone to say yes, you send them the contract, and you want that to be it. These platforms make it so that you don't have to do anything else after this, right? Your prospect has everything they need to sign it, pay it, so that you can move on to the next one. The most frustrating thing as a sales rep is getting to that very end and having a snag with the contract or the payments.
No doubt.
You put in work for months, all right? Let's make this as frictionless as possible.
Definitely.
I always like fishing for red lines at the beginning of the process, right? It seems like this might work. Here's our MSA. Now let's continue working together for a month and a half.
That's right. How's the legal team going to mark out this document? The next slide, I think, is one of the last two here. Oh, right. So measuring. We talked about a little A/B testing here with the last question, right? How do we measure stuff? JP, if you go one more here, these are some of the metrics, and this is a lot to look at. These are some of the metrics we track, all right? Number of ops, close lost, close won. You guys can look at this on your own time, but what's important to note here is in parentheses, we break all this down by segment. There are 8 metrics we're tracking. But if you guys have 4 micro segments, it means we're tracking 32 different things here. Now, using Growlabs, we track all this ourselves. Hopefully, your CRM could do most of this for you. But again, with having these very small targeted groups of people, it's important to track not only these 8, but then do it across each segment and across each market so that you really know where your efficiencies lie and where you can double down on your processes to make the most out of your prospecting and make the most out of your sales funnel. All right. And the last thing here, we have 2 more slides. This is a typical funnel with close percentages. These are things, again, your CRM should track. Growlabs tracks this ourselves, so I don't have to do it, which is nice. But these are your percentages, which everyone looks at. What a lot of people don't look at is the next slide here. And again, this goes back to the very first thing we talked about. Different sizes of companies have different cycles. So 24 days might be your SMB market. Track that. Then track your mid-market. It might be 60 to 90 days. Then track your enterprise deals. That might be 180 to 360 days. All that matters because you want to have people with similar buying cycles grouped together so that you can essentially know your cash flow numbers. And as a startup, that's crucial. I can't go after all enterprise deals and have them close a year from now because we run out of money, right? So it's important to not only track the percentages, but also the timing for all of this. And again, Scott, you'll send the slides out after this, so you all have all this information at your fingertips. But that's the whole sales cycle. That's the whole funnel.
Love it.
Yep.
Awesome, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for your insights. That was a lot of fun, and we did go 3 minutes over. So thank you, everyone, for sticking with us and some amazing engagement we got. So I think that's why we went a little bit longer. But Jeff, Jeremiah, thanks again, guys, and for everyone who joined us, thanks a lot.
You got it. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Scott.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.